Well, it's Movember Day 30. It's after 10 o'clock. I'm doing a makeup video, so I've done 30 videos in 30 days. In this video, I'm going to just pay tribute to a man who died at 95 in November this year. His name is Robert Bly, and he wrote Iron John, as amongst other books. His little book in the shadow was a really seminal book that I know we did a lot of men's retreat work around. And the book I'm going to read from tonight is The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart. I might just get rid of the cover. It's a bit easier to hold. And so there's some poems here written by Robert, poems translated by Robert, and poems that him, James Hillman, and Michael Meade put together for men of that generation back in the 80s and 90s there that were part of that mythopoetic men's movement. I was really pleased when I got into the work of John Eldridge that he quotes Robert a lot too. So I'm going to read a couple of poems and say a couple of last thoughts for this year's campaign, and then that'll be the end of it for another year. So the first poem is a Rilke poem translated by Robert. It's called Sometimes a Man Stands Up During Supper. Sometimes a man stands up during supper and walks outdoors and keeps on walking because of a church that stands somewhere in the east. And his children say blessings on him as if he were dead. And another man who remains inside his own house dies there, inside the dishes and in the glasses, so that his children have to go far out into the world toward the same church which he forgot. A William Stafford poem in this book, a story that could be true. If you were exchanged in the cradle and your real mother died without telling the story, then no one knows your name. And somewhere in the world your father is lost and needs you, but you are far away. He can never find how true you are, how ready, when the great wind comes and the robberies of the rain, you stand in the corner shivering. The people who go by you wonder at their calm. They miss the whisper that runs any day in your mind. Who are you really, wanderer? And the answer you have to give, no matter how dark and cold the world around you is, maybe I'm a king. Robert tells the story that his father was a violent alcoholic, and when he got into doing the men's movement stuff, he really came in as a poet and a storyteller, but through that process he said he had to come to terms with that father-son wound of his own. And he said, don't feel sorry for me, I could have got stuck in the bathroom, and in actual fact he got stuck outside in the wild snowy fields of the Minnesota winters. And some of his landscape poems are sort of cover that, the loneliness in his house, but by the starkness of the reality around him. So this is snowbanks north of the house. Those great sweeps of snow that stop suddenly 6 feet from the house. Thoughts that go so far. The boy gets out of high school and reads no more books. The son stops calling home. The mother puts down her rolling pin and makes no more bread. And the wife looks at her husband one night at a party and loves him no more. The energy leaves the wine, and the minister falls, leaving the church. It will not come closer. The one inside moves back, and the hands touch nothing and are safe. The father grieves for his son, and will not leave the room where the coffin stands. He turns away from his wife, and she sleeps alone. And the sea lifts and falls at night, and the moon goes on through the unattached heavens alone. The toe of the shoe pivots in the dust, and the man in the black coat turns and goes back down the hill. No one knows why he came, and why he turned away, and why he did not climb the hill. A poem out of this book that I always thought came from Francis Murray, but it's a Francis Murray quote of Goethe. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favour all manner of unforeseen incidences and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. Where are we? Another translation by Robert by Rilke. The Man Watching. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days. I'll start that again. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days on my worried window panes that a storm is coming. And I hear the far-off fields say things I can't bear without a friend, I can't love without a sister. The storm, the shifter of shapes, drives on across the woods and across time, and the world looks as if it had no age. The landscape, like a line in the psalm book, is seriousness and weight and eternity. What we choose to fight is so tiny, and what fights with us is so great. If only we would let ourselves be dominated as things do by some immense storm, we would become strong too and not need names. When we win, it's with small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean the angel who appeared to the wrestlers of the Old Testament. When the wrestlers' sinews grew long like metal strings, he felt them under his fingers like chords of deep music. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply declined to fight, went away proud and strengthened and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. And last is a translation by Robert of Antonio Machida. Last night. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvellous error, that a spring was breaking out of my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me, water of a new life that I have never drunk? Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt a marvellous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs of sweet honey from my old failures. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvellous error, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night as I slept, I dreamt marvellous error, that it was God I had here inside my heart. So, with this Movember, then I just pay homage to Robert, and I also send my love to John Lee, who was mentored by Robert and gave his time for the webinar that was really enjoyed by the people that came. And I know that the day after that, Robert passed away, and that John was really grieving, and he will be in deep grief because he had a deep love for him. And so my heart goes out to John, and my thanks for his time, as well as to Alexandra Katahakis, who gave a webinar. Each November I try and just reach towards the hearts of men in a mental health way, as a man in recovery from addictions and childhood trauma. And the next thing I want to read is a poem by And I'll try and make this a little larger and see if I can do it, but I'll read it from the screen itself. And maybe I'll just go back because it doesn't seem to change the size. So this is by Christopher Morley, and it's read by John Bradshaw. And he just makes the point, when he read this, he was talking about toxic shame and what happens when we grow up in family systems where we just can't be spontaneous. And this poem is about what happens when children just get that beautiful space to be themselves. And so he reads this in his presentation on HBO about healing the shame that binds you. And I just want to read this because I was in a session on the weekend with a woman that really needed this, the rescue that this poem is, and so I'll read it. To a child. The greatest poem ever known is one all poets have outgrown, the poetry innate untold of being only 4 years old. Still young enough to be a part of nature's great impulsive heart, born comrade of bird, beast and tree, and unself-conscious as the bee. And yet with lovely reason skilled each day new paradise to build, elate explorer of each sense, without dismay, without pretense. In your unstained transparent eyes there is no conscience, no surprise. Life's queer conundrums you accept, your strange divinity still kept. Being that now absorbs you all, harmonious unit integral, will shed into perplexing bits, O contradiction of the wits. And life that sets all things in rhyme may make you poet too in time. But there were days, O tender elf, where you were poetry itself. And I know that in recovery, as we try and reclaim that wounded child and sort of bring out that preciousness of self, that recovery really is about delighting in that in ourselves, that place in ourselves. And I know in my family I get a lot of joy watching my kids grow up without being shamed and without being in fear. And this poem means a lot when I look at that stage of each of my kids. So we're getting close to finishing Movember for this year. One of Robert's sayings is sometimes we have to grow the wings on our way down. So if you're out there struggling, don't stop flapping. Don't stop trying. Reach out. Ask for the support you need. I hope some of these videos have helped. It's just a small contribution to a global initiative to reach out to men. And so I hope that these videos this year have touched that chord. And if you look back through this YouTube page, if you find your way here, each year there's a whole bunch of videos on different things on addiction and mental health and trauma recovery. And I'm really looking forward to not having to make a video tomorrow. So this will be me signing off with my Day 6 makeup video, but my end of Movember campaign. Thank you for all the people who donated, for all the people that came to the workshops, to Alexandra Katahakis and John Lee for presenting, and to my wife for backing me to do this every November, staying up late, doing little videos and offering tools through our little counselling practice that we hope will help. So be gentle with your heart, and I look forward to catching you next Movember.